Welcome back! I'm one of the developers working on Dwarf. Thank you all for supporting us on Kickstarter, and if you haven't, then you suck. When starting pixel art, it's hard to decide what size your canvas should be and what size your sprites should be. I'll start by talking about game engines. So a lot of you are fans of GB Studio, and basically it lets you make games for the Game Boy or PC. Like legit, your game would run on a Game Boy. Personally, I love GB Studio. I think it's a great first game engine to get into, and check it out, I got a shout out here, Gerb's Adventure. The only con of GB Studio really is that you can't sell your games on Steam or the App Store, and to me that's kind of a big con. GB Studio 2 is coming out and they added a lot of cool features, so I totally want to hop back into it. I haven't done a tutorial in a long time, but I'm totally going to do a platformer tutorial. So in GB Studio, the sprites can only have 4 colors and they have to be 16 by 16. For backgrounds, they can be no smaller than 160 by 144 and no bigger than 256 by 256. Since I'm not a noob though, and I know how to program, I decided to go with Unity for Dwarf. Unity has none of the sprite limitations, none of the color limitations, and overall it's just more powerful. But of course, it's more complicated. So if you're just starting off in pixel art and you want to make games, which you probably do, I would go with GB Studio for now. Look, I know there's a whole bunch of 2D game engines, but if you don't know programming, I would just do GB Studio, and then once you make the decision to learn programming, skip over all those simple 2D game engines and just start using Unity. Also, GB Studio is free. Now, how are you gonna beat that? You just click the download button, download now. It recommends $15, but you can say no thanks. Which you can also do when you download my free art asset pack, but I do appreciate the donations. Link in the description. If you want to post something to Twitter, it only supports 2 types of aspect ratios. 1:1, which means it's a square, or 16 by 9, which is like a typical HD resolution. If you want to post an image on Twitter that's a square, you have to export it as a GIF. In whatever pixel art program you use, it doesn't really matter how big the size is when you start drawing, because what you can do in almost all of them is change the canvas size. So let's say I wanted to export one of these, which by the way, this is one of the rewards in the Kickstarter. You can become a statue in the game. It's pretty cool. Okay, so let's say I wanted to make this my canvas size, right? So if I wanted this to show up as a square on Twitter, I have to save it as a GIF, which means up here in the timeline, well, you might have it on the bottom. You can click these 3 sliders, and over here you can choose where this is. That's a lot of people ask me about that. Anyway, all you have to do is create a new frame, and now that there's 2 frames, now it's a GIF. And now if you go to File, and you go to Export, make sure to make it much bigger, maybe like 500, and make sure that it's exported as a GIF. So you see this image right here, it didn't get cropped. It will say GIF in the bottom left corner, but I mean, I think it's worth it. The other solution is to take your canvas size. So let's just go ahead and go to canvas size, and let's say we want to keep it this height, 72. And I'm going to put 72 here, and it's going to tell me that to keep the 16 by 9 aspect ratio, I need to make the width 129. So we go back in here and we change the width to 129, hit OK, and now it won't be cropped when I post it on Twitter. By the way, the program that I'm using, it's called Sprite. It's got a lot of pretty cool features. You can drag these things around right here if you want to manually, crop something. So let's say I want to adjust this statue. And there's a link in the description for this program. I'm not sponsored by Sprite, but I'll get a tiny kickback if you buy it through Humble Bundle. Link in the description. Pretty much in any program, you can show a grid. In Sprite, you go to Edit, Preferences, Grid. I like to make it black. And then I like to put the opacity pretty low. Let's hit apply and OK. And there we go, there's our grid. Overall, I think it's easier to draw 16 by 16 art. You'll get it done quicker. And if you're not that great at drawing, then go for 16 by 16. No one will even realize you suck at drawing. However, if you do have time, patience, and you're good at drawing, there's not really a reason why you shouldn't do 32 by 32. For Dwarf, we aimed for 16 by 16. So all of these ground tiles are 16 by 16, but the objects on that, they don't need to fit that size exactly. So as you can see, I can move this object around. It's not actually drawn on the ground, and it doesn't actually fit into a perfect 16 by 16 grid. So there are no limitations, but of course, if you're gonna have an environment, you kind of need to pick whether you're gonna go 16 by 16, 32 by 32, and honestly, that's up to you based on how much detail you wanna add into your drawings. The thing is, if you are a beginner pixel artist, I think it's harder for you. I think it's easier to hide the fact that you're not so good when you do 16 by 16 art. For Dwarf, our environment is 16 by 16 and our enemies are made to fit that environment, but they don't have to stick within the 16 by 16 because there's no limitations to the engine. So as you can see here, this Necromancer looks like a 16 by 16 character, but if we zoom in, you can see that the sprite bleeds a little bit. And this is fantastic because it looks like our character fits the environment, but when we need to, we can make the sprite a little bit bigger. Unfortunately, you can't do that in GB Studio. Now that the Dwarf Kickstarter is out, I have a little bit more time, so I'll be uploading more frequently. I'll see you guys next time. Devla!